incorporation of public health policy into the treaties, into the European Union treaties, brings about a gradual change in the way bioethics is understood. Indeed, the use of general and
I'm so sorry.
Yes.
Can I ask where we can find the presentations from first and from this lecture?
For this, excuse me, I could not, I don't understand what exactly.
Where we can find the lectures, like presentations, from this course?
The lectures presentation, I think that it will be, Sylvia will send you Madame Puharuk will send you my shadows, It's a complete shadow. It's not only the titles of the different chapters, There's some information, detailed information, also about the courses, okay?
Okay. It will be really helpful for us to prepare for the exam. That's why I'm asking.
Yes. Yes, of course, but I think that the courses are recorded, so I will ask Sylvia to send you also, the students, what they do is recording the courses with the transcription, so I don't know, it will be helpful for you.
Okay. Where you will send it to the email or to the Teams?
On Teams.
Okay.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe I will check this point also with Sylvia and Madame Kuharuk. I will say to her to send the description in the courses recorded, in the recorded courses. It will be okay for you also.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. So I will continue my flow. So now everything is okay. Do you understand? I will explain you the connection between the European Union law and the bioethics, and the connection with the bioethics within the health policy within the European Union. Okay? If you don't have if you don't understand something, don't hesitate to interrupt me and to ask me the questions. Okay? So, the connection of bioethics with the health policy of the European Union. The incorporation of public health policy into the treaties brings about a gradual change in the way bioethics is understood. Indeed, the use of general and sector-specific bases places great emphasis not on the imperative of developing medical ethics as such, but on its implication for the achievement of common policies and the internal market. Health policy reverses this consideration because it links bioethics with the more general issue of protecting health over and above economic considerations. Gradually incorporated into the treaties, the protection of public health has become a priority objective, both as a common policy and as a fundamental right under Article 35 of the Charter on the Fundamental Rights of the European Union. In fact, at European Union level, this policy is traditionally aimed at protecting health. The definition of health itself is extremely broad, as set out in the International World Health Organization a definition that serves as reference even in European Union law. According to this definition, health is defined as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity. Health protection is therefore not just a matter of setting up a healthcare system. It must also be based on a system of prevention and anticipation of damage to health. Consequently, at both European Union and national level, health protection is based on a multiplicity of policies. A very large number of European Union policies can have an impact on people's states of health, which can ultimately be seen as the implicit affirmation of an objective whereby all European Union policies and actions contribute to ensure health protection. The existence of such an objective has, however, been progressively affirmed and clarified by the Court of Justice of the European Union, since the original treaties made no reference to it. Apart from the protection of the safety and health of workers or protection against ionizing radiation due to the risk of radioactive contamination. This case law of the European Union Court of Justice can be systemized around two ideas. Firstly, health protection is seen as an economic activity through the prism of free movement. This is a very important principle of the European Union, the free movement of persons, of providers, and it's a very important element, fundamental element of the connection between bioethics and European Union law. Secondly, the protection of public health is established as an imperative requirement in the general interest, authorizing member states to restrict freedom of movement on the grounds of safeguarding public health. The normative action of the European Union is consistent with the position of the Court of Justice on the protection of public health. This is considered an essential condition for justifying the approximation of national legislation on the marketing and free movement of medicinal products. It was not until the Maastricht Treaty came into force that specific competence in the area of health was incorporated into the treaties. The Treaty of Amsterdam further encourages cooperation between the member states and the community by allowing to support the national actions where necessary. The Treaty of Amsterdam also strengthens the possibility for the community to adopt binding measures to ensure a high level of safety under the former Article 152 of the Treaty on European Community. Now, under Article 35 of the Charter of Fundamental Rights, everyone has the right of access to preventive health care and the right to benefit from medical treatment under the conditions established by national laws and practices. A high level of human health protection shall be ensured in the definition and implementation of all union policies and activities. This is based on both the precautionary principle, to which the Court of Justice referred in the context of the so-called mad cow disease case, where public health was invoked as a justification for restricting certain economic rights and the principle of prevention, as well as on human dignity and the ethical principles it implies. The last treaty of the European Union construction, the Treaty of Lisbon, reaffirms the priority of public health protection and its ability to influence all common policy. Article 6 of the Treaty on Functioning of the European Union states that the protection and the improvement of human health is an action with a European objective. The first subparagraph of Article 168 of the Treaty of the European Union stressed that the high level of human health protection shall be ensured in the definition and implementation of all union policies and activities. In addition to the more general aspect relating to health, this article brings bioethical concerns directly into the Union's normative action. Since paragraph of this article specifies that the European Parliament and the Council, acting in accordance with the ordinary legislative procedure and after consulting the Economic and Social Committee and the Committee of the Region, shall contribute to the achievement of the objectives referred to in this article by adopting in order to address common safety concerns, measures, setting high standards of health and safety at work and in the exercise of their responsibilities, in particular with regard to the protection of human health measures. Setting high standards of quality and safety of organs and substances of human origin, blood and blood derivatives. These measures shall not prevent any member state from maintaining or introducing more stringent protective measures. Similarly, paragraph 4 refers to measures setting high standards of quality and safety of medicinal products and devices for medical use. This article, it also authorizes the European Union legislator under the ordinary legislative procedure to adopt measures binding on the member states in order to implement a high level of safety for the protection of human health. This possibility was introduced by the Treaty of Amsterdam, which, in the wake of serious health crises, such as this, improves the European Union institutions to set high standards of quality and safety for organs and substances of human origin, blood, and blood derivatives. On this basis, was adopted the Directive 2002/98, which setting standards of quality and safety for the collection, testing, processing, storage, and distribution of human blood and blood components, and the Directive 2004/23 on setting standards of quality and safety for the donation, procurement, testing, processing, preservation, storage, and distribution of human tissues and cells were adopted as soon as the Treaty of Amsterdam entered into force. Article 168 of the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union has thus made it possible both to rationalize and to fill the gaps in community legislation on blood and blood-derived products and of the human tissues and cells. As far as the donation of human tissues and cells is concerned, it has above all enabled the recommendations made by the European Group on Ethics on the urgent need to control the conditions for the circulation of human tissues of the European market to be put into practice. Referring expressly to the European groups of ethics opinion, the Commission based its proposal on 5 key ideas. The first of one, the ethical imperative of health safety, the integrity of the human body, prior, free, and informed consent, the protection of identity, and anonymous and free tissue donation, a voluntary act of solidarity. This legal basis, Article 168 of the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union, was also used to adopt Directive 2010-63 on standards of quality and safety of human organs intended for transplantation. Its justification was essentially based on the current shortage of organs, the imperative to strike a fair balance between two factors: the need to allow organ transplants, which is generally a matter of life, death, on the one hand, and the need to ensure high standards of quality and safety on the other hand. The completion of the internal market has been the striking revelation of the emergence of a European Union law on bioethics. The directive on setting standards of quality and safety for the collection of human blood, and the directive on setting standards of quality and safety for the donation and the distribution of human tissues were replaced by a new regulation, which will come into force in 2027. This new normative instrument of the European Union law will be directly implemented in the national law. Indeed, the regulation within the European Union law does not need the national measures of implementation. So, in 2027, this new regulation will be the legal framework of the donation of the human blood and the human substances, including, of course, the reproductive cells and the free movement of these elements of the human body. Of course, with this new regulation, which was adopted last February by the European Parliament and Council of the European Union, this new regulation will be the legal framework within the European Union and, of course, of the member states concerning the free donation of the substances, of the human substances. And of course, very important questions, ethical issues, was raised by this new regulation. And that we have to include not only the question of the not only for the different for the free donation of these cells, but also the free cells, but also to include other ethical principles such as animals, protection of the donors, protection of the receiver of this donation, the right to access to personal origin, the protection of personal data, and of course, the establishment of the European space of health data and the specific protection of the health data protection within the new regulation adopted by the European adopted in the end of the beginning of this year, and which also be into enforced in 2027. So many cross-linked, very strongly linked connection with other policies, with other ethical principles. And this is the reason why I think that the national bio law, even the national bio law, came in the new area with this new normative framework at the European Union. So because the regulation is of direct effect, and anyone could invoke the regulations before the national jurisdictions or the national authorities in order to ensure the protection of the rights provided by these regulations. And when we are going to study deeply the regulations, this regulation on free donation and the free movement of human substance element, will underline, we could see that this regulation provides a subjective right for the donors, and especially the child which will be born from a medical assisted procedure. So I think it's very important, not only at the European Union law, because this regulation is of substantive nature. It was not the case for the directive, because the directives of 2002 and the directive of 2004, the objective of these two directives was of imperative to ensure a high level of standards of conservation and collection of the blood and the human cells. Instead, this new regulation is more substantive one, is not of technical nature. Of course, we have this ethical imperative of sanitary security, of hygiene of security, in order to avoid the transmission of diseases within the European facilitated by the free movements within the European internal market. Okay. Of course, it's also this objective is a very important one, but on the other hand, this new regulation provided subjective rights to the individuals in order to protect the personal data, and of course especially the health data protection. So I think it is the new area. We come into the new area about the European Union law, and the bioethics reveals this new evolution thanks to the development to this stage of the health policy at the European Union level. So, in particular, and that's why, in its particular dynamics, has provided an original framework within which ethical issues have gradually come to the fore. In turn, these normative acts have gradually led to a renewal of the national political aim of European integration, because the internal market, it allows economic interest to enjoy unhindered access to an enlarged trading area. The internal market is also a framework for recognition and solidarity between states and between European citizens. This is its substance, and this is also its ambivalence. That's the reason why, thanks to the bioethics, thanks to these ethical principles, the European integration came into the area of the political construction, of the political project, which not be only, it will be arguing this situation. It's not only the discussion, it's the conciliation between the interest of the member states and the lack of competence of the European Union in this field. Indeed, Article 3 of the Treaty on European Union confirms that the completion of the internal market also has an axiological dimension. This means that the internal market is also based on the European Union common values shared by the member states. These values, since into entry of the force of the Treaty of Lisbon in 2009, these values is provided by Article 2 on the Treaty of the Treaty on the European Union. And this Treaty of Lisbon introduced for the first time this article in the structure of the treaties, and the European Court of Justice used to use this article and to confer to it a normative values. And the protection of fundamental rights is now inherent in the freedoms of movement on the basis of the Charter of Fundamental Rights. Recognition of the central role of the European citizens has also profoundly transformed the operation of the internal market rules. In these circumstances, ethical concerns are not foreign to the company on the grounds that they are not of economic nature. These concerns are not totally disconnected from economic activity, but they modify it because they also give a different purpose. This ethical coloring of economic activity is strikingly apparent in the case law of the Court of Justice, which has been called upon to reconcile ethical principles with the exercise of freedom of movement. The emergence of bioethics in this context acts a disruptive force. It mobilizes recourse to the register freedom of movement of the internal market to highlight some of the issues at stake and the responses provided by European Union law with regard to both access to the market and the exercise of economic activities, where the human body and its part in its component are concerned. And the first of one of this protection was the health, safety, and medicines. Bioethic issues have gradually come to the fore, almost exclusively in connection with human health issues. Thus, bioethic issues have been associated with barriers to the free movement, particularly as regards the marketing of health products, the exponential development of the European Union action in favor of access to medical care will give another dimension to the ethical question. It will then be raised mainly in connection with the free movement of patients within the European Union. So, I will give you 7 minutes a break, and I will continue this chapter, especially with reference, especially in reference with the ethical issues involved in the free movement of health products. It will be okay for you? Again. So, the ethical issues involved in the free movement of health products. The principle of the free movement of health products was recognized very early on. The Court of Justice classified health products as goods that could be freely placed on the market and consequently marketed. The concept of goods was given a broad interpretation, encompassing all health products, including those derived from the human body. However, this free movement raised the problem of the potentially dangerous nature of these products for health. The member states did not hesitate to use the derogation provided for in the treaties for the protection of public health to restrict or even prevent it. Faced with this situation, the European Union legislator intervened with the aim of reconciling national disparities as regards the safety standards governing the manufacture of health products. In addition, it has made their free movement subject to prior authorization, which is granted following an in-depth study of the result of medical research into their safety. Ethical issues have also been indirectly addressed in the requirements for conducting clinical trials prior to marketing health products. These requirements has also been strengthening for devices manufactured from animal tissue. in order to eliminate or reduce as far as possible the risk of infection. Although the regulation related to healthcare products for human use are highly developed and varied, they have in common the pursuit of the ethical imperative of health safety and the application of ethical, of ethical requirement to the handling of healthcare products for human use. So, first of all, the ethical imperative of health safety. The ethical imperative of health safety is the main objective pursued in European regulations on health products for human use. Ever since the first directives on medicinal products for human use, this imperative has been targeted by a procedure for registering medicinal products and by the introduction of a marketing authorization procedure. Directive 2001/83, establishing the Community Code for Medicinal Products, confirms this choice while incorporating the ethical principles that must govern medical research. Directive 93/42 on medical devices referred to this when these devices were indissociable from a medicinal product. Regulation 2017/745, which replaces it, provides for a procedure for assessing the health risk of a medical device. But it is in the context of legislation relating to health products derived from the human body that the ethical aspect of this health safety imperative has been particularly emphasized, as has the importance of the high health standards. The requirement for a high standard of sanitary hygiene is part of the concern to establish a high level of public health protection. It is the expression of the right to receive treatment and care appropriate to one's state of health in the best possible conditions in order to minimize the risks of transmission of infectious disease. The high quality health system that has been set up is based on a number of elements that can be systemized around conditions relating to donors and the management of the quality of donations. First of all, conditions relating to donors. Conditions relating to the donor appears to be essential to the establishment of a health quality system. As far as blood regulations are concerned, as early as 1994, the Commission highlighted the need to impose such conditions. In its communication of 21 December 1994 on blood safety and self-sufficiency in the community, the Commission identified the need for a blood strategy aimed at strengthening confidence in the safety of the blood transfusion chain and promoting self-sufficiency in the community. The Council of the European Union adopted the same positions in two resolutions on 2 of June 1995 and 12 November 1996, which essentially aimed to highlight the need to guarantee the safety of blood transfusions and the implementations of a strategy to ensure such safety. In its resolutions of blood safety and achieving self-sufficiency in the community, the European Parliament in turn stressed the importance of ensuring the highest level of safety in the selections of donors and the testing of donation. As well as respect for the principle of voluntary unpaid donation. The Council, in its recommendation of 29 June 1998 on the eligibility of blood donors and plasma and the screening of blood donations in the European community, drew up a whole list of measures that would be desirable within the framework of European regulations. Among these measures, the Council first emphasizes the importance of informing prospective donors of the risk that the poor quality donation could have on the transmission of infectious disease such as AIDS. In this respect, the Council recommended that donors be made aware of such risk and that the information provided by the donor be guaranteed in terms of confidentiality and protection of personal data. Secondly, the Council emphasizes the importance of the information to be requested from the prospective donor. More specifically, this concerns information relating to the donor's identity and medical history. Third, for donor eligibility, the Council recommended that the questionnaires be set up in competent institutions to allow donors to be eligible on a case-by-case basis. This establishment of a list for the exclusion of candidates for donation with the reasons that justify it. The Council also recommended that blood and blood products be tested unannounced to avoid any risk of disease transmission during blood transfusion. And indeed, the Chapter 6 of the Directive 2002/99 on setting a high level of standards for the blood donation takes up all these recommendations and gives them a binding legal basis in that the member states are obliged to provide national transposition measures which allow for the quality and safety of blood and blood component. In the same way, the Directive 2004/33 complements these requirements. Part B of Annex 2 to the Convention specifies the precise information that national authorities must obtain from donors, particularly with regard to their state of health. In the field of human tissues and cell donation, donor conditions are considered by the European Groups on Ethics as an ethical imperative for health safety. This ethical imperative of health safety is reflected in the implementation of adequate information regarding the risk involved, as well as on the need to obtain information from donors concerning their medical history and to proceed, if necessary, extensive biological analysis. Chapter 3 of the Directive 2004/23 incorporates these requirements because it sets out the principle of voluntary and unpaid donation, donor consent, data protection, and confidentiality, and criteria for selection, evolution, and receipt of donations. Directive 2006/17 specifies these requirements, in particular in Annex 1, which specifies the criteria for the selection of donors. The same concerns are found in Directive 2010/73 on organ donation for human transplantation. Both of these directives also deal with organ donation from deceased persons. However, they refer to national legislation to determine the conditions under which such a gift must be collected, particularly with regard to the consent of the person before his death, or that of his family and the possibility of opposing it. Thus, the European Union legislators leaves into the member states to decide on this ethical debate. It therefore merely clarifies the procedural framework for the collection, storage, and exchange of donations between member states. The counterpart to be strengthening of these requirements is the need to protect the donor, since the information collected has a personal character. Thus, as we shall see, the obligation to protect such data is enshrined in secondary legislation. The regime in the European Union has also evolved and will certainly continue to do so, given the new challenges of the active role of the patient and sharing of medical data. The management of the quality of donations appears also as an essential condition for a system of sanitary quality in respect of blood and human tissues and cells. This donation quality management system has two main features. First, this management system is characterized by the institutionalization of a specialized administrative framework for the collection and storage of these human products. Thus, Article 5 of Directive 2002/99 on blood explicitly states that donation must be made within and by competent institutions. They are authorized or licensed to collect and test human blood and blood components. Chapter 3 of the same directive contains provisions relating to blood establishments, which concern the responsible persons and the staff of those establishments in terms of the specific professional qualification required in this respect. Directive 2005/62 complements these requirements by determining the standards and specifications that each institution must implement. Similar requirements are laid down in Directive 2004/23 on the donation of human tissues and cells. Chapter 4 of this directive establishes such a system based on both the professional qualification of the persons responsible and the specialization of establishment for the collection and storage of the donation. The same requirements are found in Directive 2010/53 on organ donation for transplantation. Second, this management systems is characterized by the obligation for member states to implement principle of good practice. These practices are essentially intended to make available detailed information on the practice of collection and donation. These elements may include validated procedures, guidelines, training and reference manual, reporting forms, donor data, and information on the final destination of tissues and cells. As regards the quality management of donations, member states must be able to ensure the traceability of donation, in particular by establishing a system for identifying donors. Thus, in the field of blood and blood products, Directive 2005/61 supplements the traceability requirements and, above all, provides for the creation of a system for reporting and investigating serious reactions or incidents concerning collection and or storage. As regards traceability, which becomes the key element of the system, Article 2 of this directive specifies that member states must put in place appropriate identification procedures. More specifically, it is the implementation of a system of identification specific to each donor and each establishment that will allow, in case of blood transfusion, to establish clearly the link between the establishment and the blood product used. Similarly, Article 7 of the directive obliges member states to ensure that when blood or derived products are imported for an establishment, have such a traceability system. As regards the notification of accident, Article 5 of the directive obliges states to put in place an internal system for reporting. The member states must also submit an annual report to the Commission, and above all, give priority to administrative cooperation between the competent national authorities of other member states. The very comprehensive and binding system introduced by Directive 2002/98 even led the Court of Justice to specify that this collection and storage obligation apply to any blood product, plasma, whereas the latter was covered by Directive 2001/83 since its amendment in 2004. In its judgment, the Court of Justice clearly held that even if the medicinal product regulation applied to plasma, its collection and storage were subject to the requirements of Directive 2002/98, and that a distinction should be made between the sampling stage and the industrial handling stage. Directive 2004/23 on the donation of human tissues and cells also provides for such as an identification system. Chapter 5 also calls on the Commission to set up a European codification system. Directive 2006/86 gives concrete form to this system, in particular with regard to traceability and incident reporting requirements. Similar requirements are laid down in Directive 2010/53 on organ donation for transplantation. These requirements were supplemented by the Directive 2012/28, whose Articles 6 and 7 determine how member states must ensure, the traceability of donation and put in place procedures for reporting incidents. These procedures are based on the same model as that established in the blood and tissue directives. The importance of this system for managing the quality of donation was recalled by the court in its judgment of the case of the Commission against Poland. In the present case, Poland has excluded from its national provision transposing the Directive 2004/23 and its implementing directives the collection and storage of reproductive cells, fetal tissues, and embryonic tissues. In order to retain the fail of Poland to transpose the European system, the court adopted a two-stage reasoning. First, she recalled that these directives, taken as a whole, aim to ensure a high level of protection of public health, insofar as they are intended to establish a unified framework for ensuring high standards of quality and safety with regard to the production, the control, processing, storage, and distribution of human tissues and cells, in particular to prevent disease transmission. Therefore, it confirmed that only binding acts of legislative or regulatory nature work likely to correctly transpose the high-quality system established by the Fabrics Directive. In this case, by referring to not binding acts and guidelines with the recommendatory scope for this type of self-sent issues, Poland has failed to comply with its obligation to transpose the directive. Secondary legislation also stresses the need to ensure effective health safety control. The aim for the member states to allow the implementation of controls by means of health inspections in order to ensure on the one hand that the competent establishment actually meet the condition for issuing an authorization to proceed with the collection and storage of the donation, and, if necessary, withdraw the authorization or license from them. And on the other hand, that the collection and storage of the donation are carried out under the conditions provided for by secondary legislation, in particular with regard to the requirements relating to the donor and the management of the quality of the donation. In this respect, the Commission adopted on 3rd August 2010 a decision establishing guidelines for the detailed rules of inspections and control measures pursuant to Directive 2004/23. The guidelines, which are annexed to the decision, cover on the one hand the training of inspectors and their responsibility, and on the other hand, the conduct of inspections themselves. Ethical principles must also be respected when handling human health projects. So, I will stop for today. Do you have any questions about what you heard about the courses? Everything is okay? So I will stop for today. And we'll see in 2 weeks, I think, because next week is not be possible to, it will be 28th of April. 28th of April, it will be okay. So I wish you to have a very nice week, very nice day. And if you have any question, maybe I will send you my courses in English. I will see, I just complete some new reference about the new regulation on donation of human substance. And I will send my note. It will be easy for you, I think, to follow the courses. Okay. So see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.